Welcome back to Classy and Sassy. This week, we're talking about a few things that have caught my attention lately, and apparently, I have opinions about all of them, as normal. We're going to start with dating in 2026 because between the stories women are sharing online, the voicemails they play, the screenshots being posted, and the comments underneath all of it, I have questions. Then I want to get into something I've noticed while watching television. We love all of these reality shows because of the drama. But are we really judging everybody by the same rules? Because sometimes the reactions to what contestants do seem to depend very heavily on whether that contestant is a man or a woman, and sometimes race adds another layer entirely. And of course, we're going to lighten things up after that because, as always, I have book talk to do, and I've got a couple of other things on my mind that we'll get into as we go. Basically, we're all over the place this week, which at this point might just be what we do around here. So grab your coffee, your tea, your wine, and let's talk. Dating in 2026. Where do I even begin? Whether you're actually dating, or just talking to friends who are dating, or spending entirely too much time watching other people date and put their lives on social media, eventually you have to wonder, what exactly is happening out there? Because some of these stories are wild. I recently came across one that had me completely invested. A woman gets online. She's talking about this great guy she met. She's excited. Things apparently went very well. They made out. She thinks he's great. She's telling everybody about this guy. Nothing particularly unusual about that, except another woman happens to see this same video. And as she's listening, some of the details start to sound a little too familiar. Just basically thinking, wait a minute, that sounds like my man. So eventually the two women compare notes. Sure enough, same man. Except this isn't somebody she was casually dating. It's her long-term, supposedly exclusive boyfriend of more than a year. And if that wasn't enough, apparently this man is not very creative because some of the same lines he used with his girlfriend, he's using on this new chick. Sir, if you're going to run multiple relationships, could we at least get some original material? Because now you're cheating and plagiarizing yourself. But as ridiculous as the story is, it made me wonder about something. Has dating actually gotten worse? Or has social media simply made it much harder to get away with things people have always been doing? Because cheating isn't something new. Men cheated before TikTok. Women cheated before Instagram. People had secret relationships long before anyone knew what a dating app even was. The difference is that years ago, those two women would have never crossed paths. Now, social media will apparently introduce your girlfriend to the woman you were making out with last weekend. The algorithm has said, you two have something in common. And it's right. That's the world that you're dating in right now. People post screenshots, they share dating profiles, they play your voicemails online. Somebody tells a story and a woman in the comments says, wait, does his name by any chance start with a J or L or... Next thing you know, strangers have formed an investigative unit. And some of these women need to forget dating and go work for the FBI because the speed at which they find information is impressive. But cheating isn't even part of the modern dating that confuses you the most. It's the contradictions. A man decides he doesn't want to be in a relationship anymore. Fine. Not every relationship's going to work. If you don't want to be there, leave. But then she moves on. And suddenly we have a problem. She moved on too quickly. She looks too happy. Is she dating again? Now he's upset. Sir, you broke up with her. What exactly was supposed to happen next? Was there a mandatory mourning period? Did she need to spend 90 days wearing black? Or was she supposed to sit at home every Friday night staring at old pictures of you until you decided she'd been sad long enough? You wanted out. You're out. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You don't get to end the relationship and then control how somebody behaves after the relationship is over. And social media has introduced me into another category of dating behavior that I find absolutely fascinating. The voicemail. You know the one. A woman starts talking to a man. He tells her, I'm not looking for anything serious, or I'm not ready for a relationship, or maybe he tells her he doesn't want to be monogamous. Okay, I actually respect telling us what you want. The problem isn't necessarily what he says. The problem comes when she believes him. Because so many men are so used to women trying to convince them. Instead of trying to convince him that she's different, she says, okay. No argument, no begging, no audition for the position of his girlfriend. She simply decides, well, that's not what I'm looking for, and she moves on. Apparently, that's not how the script's supposed to go, because now he's in his feelings. And suddenly, there's a 4-minute voicemail. He's confused, he's hurt, he's angry. He doesn't understand how she could just walk away. And we're sitting here thinking, didn't you just tell her you didn't want a relationship? Apparently, there was an invisible second half to that sentence. I don't want a relationship, but I would still like you to want one with me. Now we're getting somewhere. Because sometimes I don't think people actually want freedom. They want freedom for themselves while knowing you're still available. He can go explore his options, and you remain one of them. He doesn't have to commit, but you stay emotionally committed to him. He can date other people, but if you start dating someone else, now we should have a conversation. That's not freedom. That's wanting the benefits of having someone without the responsibility of actually choosing them. And maybe one of the biggest changes we're seeing in dating is that more women aren't volunteering for that position anymore. You don't want a relationship? Okay, we're looking for different things. You don't want monogamy? That's your choice. I'm going to make mine. You're inconsistent? This isn't working for me. Instead of spending months trying to convince somebody to give them what they need, there are more women who seem very willing to just take you at your word. And apparently, that has become controversial. Go underneath almost any video where a woman says she'd rather stay single than to keep begging for the basics, and there's going to be some men in those comments angry about it. You women are too independent. That's why y'all are single. You're going to end up alone. Can we talk about how ineffective that threat is when the woman has literally just told you she's okay being alone? If we say we'd rather be single than miserable, and your response is, well, you're going to be single. Okay, we agree. Now what? And when exactly did independent become a bad word? There's this strange idea that if a woman can take care of herself, she don't want a man. Those are not the same thing. Being capable of taking care of yourself does not mean you don't want love. It doesn't mean you don't want companionship. You can be independent and still want partnership. You can enjoy having someone to depend on without being willing to become dependent on someone who isn't dependable. It's a pretty important distinction. And I think that's where some of the frustration we're seeing around dating comes from. For a very long time, being married wasn't simply about companionship for women. There were financial realities, social expectations, the stigma attached to being unmarried at a certain age. Those things haven't disappeared completely. But women today have options that previous generations of women didn't always have. A woman can build a career, support herself, buy a house, travel, build friendships, and create a full life. So if a relationship comes into that life, simply being able to say, I have a man, isn't necessarily enough anymore. The relationship has to add something. And that's where things get interesting. Because when somebody doesn't need a relationship simply to survive, the standard for staying in one changes. But there's another side to this that I don't think we can ignore. The dating stories women are hearing online are horrible. I'm talking secret girlfriends, secret wives, married men on dating apps, manipulation, cheating, men telling one woman they don't believe in relationships while apparently maintaining a completely relationship 3 neighborhoods over. You can hear enough of those stories and start thinking, you know what? I'm good. I'll stay home. And you see it in the comments constantly. Some woman's telling some unbelievable story about some guy, and there are hundreds of women underneath saying, thank you for reminding me why I'm single. I was thinking about downloading the apps again. You know what? Never mind. Every time I consider dating, TikTok sends me one of these. It's actually funny. But I also think there's something worth considering underneath the jokes. Are all these dating stories actually discouraging people from dating? Because social media is not giving a balanced sample. The happy couples who have perfectly normal Wednesday nights are not going viral. My husband came home from work, we had dinner, he asked about my day, we watched television, we went to bed, get 7 views. Nobody cares. But I found out my boyfriend of 14 years has another girlfriend because she saw my TikTok. Now everybody grabs a chair. We have a story. And once you watch one, the algorithm gives you another and another. Before long, your timeline makes it look like every man in America has multiple girlfriends, a wife nobody knows about, and a burner phone hidden in the garage. That doesn't mean the bad experiences aren't real. They absolutely are. Sharing them can even help other women recognize behavior they might otherwise dismiss. But we also have to remember that outrageous stories travel farther than other ordinary ones. So are women opting out of dating because dating has genuinely gotten worse? Or are they simply more aware of how bad it can be because we're hearing everybody else's experiences? Or is something else happening entirely? Maybe more women are realizing that being single isn't something they need to be rescued from. And that's an important distinction. There's a huge difference between saying, I don't want a relationship, and saying, I don't want a bad relationship. You can want love and still have standards. You can want marriage and refuse to beg for commitment. You can enjoy companionship without accepting inconsistency just so you aren't alone. If the choice is spending your relationship constantly anxious, wondering where you stand, checking phones, questioning stories, and negotiating for basic consideration, or going home, pouring a glass of wine, picking up a good book, and enjoying some peace instead. I understand now why the book looks better and better, because dating in 2026 isn't simply a case of asking, what is wrong with these men? Although some days social media makes a very convincing argument for that question. Maybe it's just watching the rules change. More women are realizing they can want love without being desperate for a relationship. They can want companionship without accepting inconsistency. You can hope to meet someone and still be perfectly prepared to walk away when what's being offered isn't what you want. And perhaps that's the part some people are struggling with. Because I'd rather be single hits very differently when the person saying it actually means it. You can't scare somebody with solitude when they've already discovered they enjoy their own company. That doesn't mean women don't want men. It simply means being a man and having a man isn't the entire qualification. And based on some of the stories making their way onto my timeline lately, the application process may need to become a little more thorough. Maybe women need to start checking references now or running background checks. And if TikTok introduces you to the other girlfriend before you do, sir, your application has officially been denied. Dating in 2026? Good luck to everybody involved. Now, reality television isn't exactly making the case for relationships or human behavior in general look much better. But there's something else I've noticed while watching some of these shows. We love to judge the people on the shows. The question is, are we judging them by the same rules? The more reality television I watch, the more I notice that two people can do almost the exact same thing and somehow get completely different reactions. Sometimes it's because one is a man and one is a woman. Other times, race seems to add another layer to it. And before we go any further, I'm not saying every criticism of a woman is sexist or every criticism of a minority is racist. People do ridiculous things on reality television. That's half the reason we watch it. If you do something ridiculous, I'm probably going to say it was ridiculous. But I do think it's worth asking ourselves whether we'd have the same reaction if someone else did the exact same thing. Let's take shows like Love Island for an example. The entire premise of the show is dating. You meet people, you explore connections, you figure out who you like. Then they intentionally bring new people in to tempt you. That's literally the show. A man can be coupled up with one woman, kiss somebody else during a challenge, become interested in a different person, kiss two more women, and come back saying he needed to test the connection. And somehow there will be people saying, well, that's what he's there for. He needed to explore. How else was he supposed to know? But let a woman move the same way. Now the conversation changes. She's messy. She's playing everybody. We can't trust her. She's doing too much. People start counting how many men she's kissed, like someone from the IRS is going to need the final number. Wait a minute. I thought we were just exploring connections. Apparently everybody can explore. Some people just aren't supposed to enjoy it as much. And I think this is one of those double standards we've become so accustomed to that sometimes we don't even notice we're doing it. A man who's dating several women is desirable. A woman who's dating several men needs to explain herself. He knows what he wants. She needs attention. He's keeping his options open. She's leading people on. Same show, same presence, same premise. Different language. And then race adds another layer that makes it even more interesting. Because shows like Big Brother make you realize that everybody doesn't necessarily have the luxury of reacting however they naturally would. Think about the environment. You're locked in a house with strangers. You're competing for a large amount of money. People are lying to you. Alliances are being formed. Somebody you trusted yesterday might be trying to get you evicted today. You're tired, you want your privacy back, you're sick of being watched constantly. Of course, people are starting to get temperamental or angry. As part of the job description. But imagine being a Black woman in that environment and knowing that if you get angry, you're not only thinking about what you're angry about, you're thinking about how your reaction is going to be perceived. How loud am I talking? What's my facial expression? Am I being too direct? Because there's always that possibility that a completely justified reaction gets reduced to one word, aggressive. And that's where we have to start paying attention. Because what exactly made her aggressive? Was she threatening someone? Was she getting in someone's face? Or did she simply raise her voice during an argument on a television show where everybody raises their voices during an argument? Sometimes a white woman can have a complete meltdown, and people call it great television. She's fiery, passionate, iconic. But a Black woman in a similar confrontation, and suddenly she's intimidating, aggressive. Why is she so angry? Well, maybe because somebody just lied to her face and tried to get her kicked off of a show for money. I'd probably be a little irritated too. And I can't imagine what it feels like to have to regulate yourself in the middle of a genuine emotional moment because you know there's old stereotypes sitting there waiting for you. The angry Black woman. That's not just about how the other contestants perceive you either. There are millions of people watching. Clips will end up online. People will dissect your reaction. And a 30-second moment could become the one thing people associate you for the rest of the season. So how much do you hold back? How often do you walk away from a confrontation you really want to have? Do you find yourself choosing your words more carefully than everybody else because you know you may not see the same grace if you lose your temper? It's a very different way to play the game. And something else happens when you're one of only a few minorities in an environment like that. You don't get to just be yourself. You become a representation of something bigger, whether you ask for that responsibility or not. One contestant behaves terribly and nobody says, "See, this is how white women are." No, she's just a woman who behaved terribly. But a Black woman behaves badly, and there's this subtle shift where suddenly her behavior gets connected to a stereotype people already had. That's a lot to carry while you're also trying to win a reality show. And shows like Love Island give you a different version of it. Those shows are built around desire and being desired. Who gets picked, pursued, who walks in and immediately has everybody interested, and who gets overlooked. Then we as viewers start deciding who's attractive enough for whom. That's where our own biases can creep in, whether we want to admit it or not. Sometimes it's incredibly subtle. A Black woman walks in, she's confident, and someone calls her intimidating. Another woman behaves the exact same way, and she's a boss. A contestant is quiet and reserved, so she's mysterious. Another is quiet, and apparently she has an attitude problem. Even something as simple as facial expressions get interpreted differently depending on who we're already expecting that person to be. And that's worth examining. Not because we need to stop criticizing reality television contestants, please. That would ruin half the fun. I'm still going to yell at my television when somebody does something ridiculous. But maybe we should occasionally stop and ask why something bothered us. Was it actually the behavior? Or was it the person displaying the behavior? Would I use the same words if somebody else had done it? And gender and race can intersect in really interesting ways here too. Take a Black woman on a dating show. She's navigating the sexual double standard women already deal with. Now add stereotypes about Black women on top of it. How much freedom does she really have to simply be messy? Because everybody gets to be messy. It's reality television. People make horrible decisions. They trust the wrong people. They kiss someone they shouldn't. They get jealous or lose their temper or say things they regret. And then hopefully they learn how to learn something from it and move on. But does everybody get the same opportunity to have a bad moment without that moment becoming a statement about their entire character? That's what I question. And we're part of this too. It's easy to blame production. Editing absolutely matters. Producers choose what we see and how a story gets presented. But producers aren't writing all those comments under the clips. We, the viewers, are. We're the ones who's choosing who we want to write classy, aggressive, easy, confident, arrogant. Who's allowed to make a mistake, and who we decide we don't like anymore because they made a mistake. Maybe reality television doesn't just show us who the contestants are. Every once in a while, it shows us something about ourselves too. So the next time you're watching one of these shows, and it has you arguing with strangers online, pay attention to your own reaction. If somebody's getting under your skin, ask yourself, would I feel exactly the same way if someone else did it? If the answer is yes, fair enough. Maybe they really are just getting on your daggone nerves. But if you have to stop and think about it for a second, that might be a more interesting answer. Now, we've spent enough time talking about dating and reality television because apparently everybody can stress you out this week. So let's talk about something considerably less complicated. Books. And I want to go somewhere a little different with this. Because lately I've been thinking, and how shall I say this? More specifically, quitting books. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean that, but you may think I mean that. Do you have to finish a book just because you started it? I used to have a really hard time not finishing a book. If I started it, I felt like I needed to see it through. Didn't like it, keep reading. Bored out of my mind, maybe it'll get better. I don't care about a single dang on person in this book. Surely something interesting is going to happen. I'd get 150 pages into a book that I'm not enjoying and somehow convince myself that because I've already invested this much time, I need to invest another 200 pages, which absolutely makes no sense when you say it out loud. If I've already spent 3 hours not enjoying myself, why is the solution more hours? There's something about readers and unfinished books. DNF, do not finish, did not finish. For some reason, it feels like a failure to us. And I've been getting much better at it. As a matter of fact, I've recently looked at a few books I've owned for years that I kept putting down, tried again, and finally said, you know what, we're done here. I'm never going to finish this. And strangely enough, it felt good. Because every book sitting on my shelf does not need to become an accomplishment. Reading is supposed to be something you enjoy. That doesn't mean every book has to be different. It has to be easy, because there's a difference between a book challenging you and a book making you dread picking it up. Some books are slow burns. I've had books that they take a while to pull you in, but they end up being really good. That's why I wouldn't necessarily say give up after 20 pages. But at some point, I need a reason to keep going. Give me a character I care about, a question I need answered, make me curious, make me angry, make me something. Because if I'm 100 pages in and my biggest concern is how many pages do I have left, I think we have our answer. And this gets particularly interesting with thrillers because it's my favorite genre. My expectations are probably higher because I read so many of them. I don't necessarily need a dead body on page 3, but I do need tension. I need that feeling that something isn't right. Give me a reason to say one more chapter. The best thrillers make me look at the clock and realize it's 1 a.m. because I kept saying that for the last 2 hours. The ones that don't work for me, I'm looking at the clock because I'm wondering if I've read enough time to justify stopping. Very different experience. I've also realized that the more you read, the quicker you recognize what works for you. You see certain patterns, you know which writing styles you enjoy. There are tropes you love, and others you have absolutely no patience for anymore. That doesn't necessarily mean the book is bad, and that's important. I didn't like this book, this is a bad book, aren't always the same statement. A book can be beautifully written, but wrong for you. Someone else might give it 5 stars. Good for them. They can have my copy too. What I don't want anymore is to spend days forcing myself through something simply because everybody else loved it. We've all had that book. Thousands of 5-star reviews. Book Talk is obsessed. Everybody's raving about it. You start reading and thinking, are we talking about the same book? Then you keep going because surely you must have missed something. Maybe chapter 12 is where the magic will happen. And in that chapter comes no magic. At some point, you have to accept that every popular book isn't going to be your book, and that's okay. There are too many books I genuinely want to read for me to spend my time trying to convince myself to read one I don't like. That's really what changed my attitude towards DNFing something. It's not about putting the book in front of me. It's about what I could be reading instead. If I have 10 books sitting there that I'm excited about, why am I avoiding them? Because I've decided I'm morally obligated to finish this one. The author's going to be fine. The book doesn't know. Nobody is coming to revoke my reader card. I can simply close it. Now I know readers who have rules about them. Some people say I give it at least 50 pages. Some say 100. Others use percentages, especially with your Kindle. They give it 25% or so before they give up. I don't think I have an exact number. For me, it's more of a feeling, and I'm just curious about what happens next. That's probably the biggest one. Even if I don't love the characters yet, is there something making me want to know more? If the answer is yes, keep going. If I'm repeatedly finding excuses to pick up literally anything else, we're in trouble. And that's another clue I've learned to recognize. When you put a book down for several days and don't think about it once, that's usually not a good sign. A good book follows you around. You wonder what's going to happen. You think about the characters. You're looking forward to picking it up. I'm not getting into reading slumps because one book has become an assignment. I'm going to just avoid reading altogether because I know I should finish something I'm not enjoying. I'm going to move on. I might come back later. That's another thing. A DNF doesn't always have to mean I hate this book and I never want to see it again. Sometimes it's not right now. I've picked up books at the wrong time before. I wasn't in the mood for something heavy. I wanted a thriller and tried to force myself to read something that was slower. 6 months later, that same book might hit completely different. So I'm giving myself permission to make that distinction as well. That's not now. But there's also we didn't spend enough time together. 2 different shelves. And I'm curious about what other readers do. How long do you give a book before you're willing to walk away? 50 pages, 100? Or do you refuse to DNF anything? And if you're one of those people who finishes every single book you start, I need to know why. Is it because you generally want to know how it ends? Or is there a tiny voice in your head saying, you came this far, you can't quit now? Because if it's the second one, I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. There are far too many good books waiting for us. And my TBR certainly isn't getting any smaller. So if a book starts feeling less like entertainment and more like a chore, I'm getting much more comfortable saying this one isn't for me. Next. And speaking of things we sometimes continue doing simply because we've convinced ourselves we're supposed to, money. More specifically, why everyone seems to have an opinion on how everybody else spends theirs. This is one of those things social media has made incredibly obvious. Someone can post a new luxury handbag. Someone's going to respond, that's ridiculous. I would never spend that much on a purse. Someone buys their dream car and someone's complaining who doesn't even know them that I would never. You're just spending that much money to impress people. A couple takes a vacation. People are complaining that they would never spend that much money on a trip. They could have put that towards their mortgage. They eat at an expensive restaurant. Someone's going to comment, I could make that at home for $20. Okay, then make it at home. Why are we mad? I understand conversations about money when someone is asking for financial advice. For example, if I were to come to you and say, I am drowning in debt, what should I do? And then you discover I spend $3,000 a month just shopping on frivolous crap. By all means, we need to discuss some things. But that's different from looking at a complete stranger and deciding something isn't worth the money because it wouldn't be worth the money to you. Those are not the same things. People value different things. One person couldn't imagine spending thousands of dollars on a vacation. They'd rather renovate their kitchen. Someone else is perfectly happy with the kitchen they have and they want to see Italy. Neither one is wrong. Another person loves designer bags. You couldn't care less about them. Fine. But maybe you have season tickets to your favorite team. Perhaps your hobby involves equipment that costs more than somebody else's entire vacation. We all have categories where someone could look at our spending and say, you paid what for that? And our answer could be yes, and because value is personal. And that's what gets lost in these conversations. We tend to judge other people's purchases according to what we value. If I don't care about cars, an expensive car is going to look ridiculous. If fashion is not important to me, then yes, a designer bag is a waste. Someone who doesn't enjoy traveling will look at a $7,000 vacation and think you have lost your mind. Meaning, the person taking that trip may have been saving for it for 2 years and wouldn't trade the experience for anything. The price is objective. Whether something is worth the price is not. And social media makes this even stranger because we're making financial assumptions based on a tiny glimpse of somebody's life. Someone posts a new car and suddenly strangers know their entire financial situation. They can't afford that. Well, how do you know? Did you pull their credit report? Have you seen their bank statements? Are you their accountant? Maybe they are in debt up to their eyeballs. Or maybe they paid in cash. We don't know. Yet people become incredibly confident about finances that aren't theirs. And on the other side of this, social media absolutely encourages people to spend money they probably shouldn't. Let's not pretend otherwise. We're constantly being sold something. And half the time, the person showing to you has some affiliate link waiting in the bio. So yes, there is a conversation worth having about spending money trying to look wealthy rather than actually building financial security. There's a difference between enjoying nice things and needing strangers to believe you have nice things. That's where I think people get themselves into trouble. Because if the reason you're buying something is, I genuinely want it, that's one thing. If it's, I need people who don't know me to think I'm doing well, we may need to unpack that. And sometimes we don't even realize how much outside influence is affecting our decisions. You watch enough luxury content and suddenly the perfectly good thing you already own starts to look inadequate. Your house seems too small, your car too old, your closet needs upgrading. The vacation you were excited about isn't impressive anymore. Nothing about your actual life has changed. Your comparison point did. That's why I think the healthiest money question isn't, would somebody else think this is worth it? It's, is it worth it to me? Can I afford it without creating a financial problem? Does it fit the priorities I've chosen for my life? Am I buying it because I genuinely want it or because I want other people to see me have it? If you're comfortable with those answers, somebody in the comments thinking you shouldn't have spent the money differently really isn't your problem. And that's a part that can make you laugh. People will criticize somebody else's expensive purchases while having absolutely no idea how much they're spending in another category. I'd never pay $300 for dinner. Okay, but you DoorDash 4 times this week. Let's not start auditing each other. Because if we dig deeply enough into everybody's spending, we're going to find something another person considers absolutely ridiculous. That's personal finance. The personal part matters. And the older I get, the more I understand that I don't necessarily want the cheapest version of everything. Sometimes I want the experience. The convenience is what I'm paying for. Other times quality matters. And yes, occasionally I just want the thing because I like the thing. Everything doesn't need a TED Talk explaining its return on investment. At the same time, I don't want to spend money just because I'm trying to keep up with what everybody else appears to have. That's a race nobody wins. And there will always be somebody with more. A bigger house, a more expensive car, a better vacation. If your definition of enough depends on what somebody else has, enough will keep moving. So maybe we can retire with some of the judgment. You spend your money according to your priorities and let everybody else spend theirs according to theirs. And as long as neither one of us is asking the other to pay the bill, I think we're going to be okay. So apparently we covered quite a bit today, more than I intended to, looking at the time. But dating in 2026 is making me wonder whether social media has changed relationships or simply made bad behavior harder to hide. Reality television has you paying closer attention to whether we're actually judging contestants by the same standards. I've officially given myself permission to stop reading books that feel like homework. I'm establishing something that everybody apparently becomes a financial advisor the minute somebody else buys something they wouldn't buy. Just another normal week around here. I'd love to hear where you land on these. If you're dating right now, does social media make you more cautious about it? Reality TV watchers, have you noticed the double standards we talk about? Come find me online and let's join the conversation. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Until next time, enjoy your life, spend your money on what matters to you, and please stop forcing yourself to read a book you haven't enjoyed for the last 200 pages. Life is too short, and there are too many good books waiting. I'll talk to you.